happy Monday. Welcome to the Pitch Drive Chronicles, where fans become family. I'm Uncle Tots. I am here with Donald. And there has been a lot of debate over the weekend of the state of baseball, whether it's good, whether it's in bad hands, whether it's broken, whether the Dodgers are fixing it by forcing the hands of other owners to kind of evaluate their own decisions. But the decisions that we matter, that we care about more are the Yankee decisions. And what the Yankees are doing with their budget of their, that final luxury tax, where at the beginning of the year it was said that money is no object. We can sign any player, right? That was what came out from our beloved owner. And there was no arguments between the front office and the ownership of if the Yankees should spend to get back and win the World Series. And it seems like the Yankees are kind of taking their foot off the gas pedal a little bit, while the Dodgers seem to be putting their foot on the gas pedal and just running away and just kind of creating a lot of space between them and the rest of baseball. Big shout out to Donald and Rob. They had a phenomenal show on Saturday on Yanktified about the Suzuki signing and the fallout from that. And the girls yesterday on the Upper Deck show with Lynn and Ciara. I have not had a chance to voice my opinion on it. We will get to my take on it. But first, I'm going to throw it to Donald. Donald, how was your weekend? Did you enjoy yourself? And are you ready to have a week full of Yankee talk?
I'm always ready for Yankee talk. As for everybody in the chat, absolutely awesome show on Saturday with Robinho. You all need to check it out. If you haven't already done so, although most of you have, judging by the chat. But if you haven't already done so, check it out. We really had a great show. But no, this debate is fascinating. It's nuanced, and it's not as black and white as, if you go, Hal's cheap or whatever. He's not cheap. That we can end right immediately. Right from the get-go, I will say right categorically, Hal Steinbrenner ain't cheap. You don't offer $760 million for Juan Soto and be considered cheap. However, there are nuances. Because where the Yankees are and where the Dodgers are, it's fair to critique how the Yankees are spending their money and whether they should ease up on the self-imposed hard cap that they've given themselves. And I think it's fair to nuance that because the Dodgers are up to $370 million on their payroll, and they don't care, right? And the Yankees absolutely care about the bottom line to an extraordinary degree, even though the Yankees probably made close to $1 billion last year in revenue with the ticket sales, the World Series run, and having Juan Soto for a year, which basically lit up the Bronx, man. The Bronx was on fire for that 1 year that Soto was there, man. He lit up the Bronx like I hadn't seen since our 2009 run. It was on fire. The atmosphere was unbelievable. So the revenue from that run should have allowed Hal to have less of a mind on the budget. And he keeps talking about stuff like, the bondsman wouldn't like this, and this is not sustainable. This is the kind of stuff that pisses me off. I mean, I understand it's still a business. I get that. I also understand that in terms of finances, the Steinbrenners aren't exactly the richest owners because, for instance, the Dodgers have even richer owners than the Steinbrenners. But the Yankees are still the most valuable franchise, and arguably in sports. So should they really be this hard and set on 300? So I think it's a nuanced debate. I think where the Yankees are and where the Dodgers are, it's kind of embarrassing that the Yankees are this far away from the Dodgers in terms of roster. So I think it's a debate that needs to be had, but also Brian Cashman's involved in it as well because you can win with a $300 million payroll, and Brian Cashman has misallocated a ton of funds. We've got $40 million worth of dead money, so we've got a lot to get into in this episode. And I'm not going to pull any punches.
No, and we know we never pull punches. We say what we feel, and we mean what we say. So I and you're right. I think the debate is not whether the Yankees spend money. They do. They do remain to have a top payroll in baseball. And something you guys have heard me say repeatedly, the issue is not the money that, it's not the fact that they spend money. The Yankees have not spent their money wisely. Where this offseason, they actually are very, very strategic on the players that they're bringing in for said money that they're getting. With that, there's still holes that have not been filled that they seem to be kind of little hesitant to give out any more contracts because of the tax threshold. And that's where it does tie in to a lot of the issues that people are saying that baseball has with, the big market teams versus the small market team, whether they're spending, whether they're not. And you get stupid comments from the Cubs owners saying that our mission is to break even for the year. That's not a good look when you're seeing what other teams are doing. I mean, even the A's have spent money just to stay away from the grievance, and everybody else that is in that category of a grievance is kind of just sitting back going, well, all right, just give him, I'd rather pay a penalty than pay a player. And that's a big problem. The Yankees don't have that problem. The Yankees are just, they're hesitant to spend above, because why would I, and this has been my argument where I have said, I am not willing to go so far above the tax threshold that my tax revenue, my shared revenue is going to be able to carry another team's entire payroll. I'm not doing that. I'm not going to remain to stay competitive while you guys will sit back and just count my money because I want to win. And I think that's the narrative in baseball that really has people more of an uproar than what the Dodgers are doing, because the Dodgers have done nothing wrong. They haven't broken any rules. So I don't think that, we can go, it's not fair that the Dodgers are getting all these players. Well, in the late 90s, during the dynasty years, when the Yankees were getting all these free agents, we didn't say a freaking word about it. So, we were like, well, you want to, you got to beat us to beat us. Well, the Dodgers are now us. That's the way I'm looking at it. Donald, what do you think?
That's it. That's exactly it. So it would be incredibly hypocritical to complain about what the Dodgers are doing. The Dodgers are doing nothing wrong. Even if you go as far as talking about the deferred money, there's nothing in the CBA that says you can't have players defer contracts. It's only to the Dodgers' benefit, and it's still up to the player if they want to defer up to $1 billion into the next century, God knows when. But listen, the Dodgers will be fine. As Lou points out, the Dodgers are owned by a hedge fund, so those contracts will be paid easily.
Yep.
And they are very strategic as a front office. They know that speculating to accumulate works. Speculate to accumulate, it works. And so they're going to take advantage of this window. They're going to win championships. They're going to just completely steamroll it. And then also, they've cornered the Asian market. They're going to have the whole of Japan watch them all year and root for them hard and spend money and merchandise. The Asian market is a big part of this. So they're going to get a ton of money. So you're going to easily pay back that Ohtani contract and easily repay the Sasaki deal and the Yamamoto contract. So they can easily do all that. They're a very strategic, forward-thinking franchise. It's not just the fact that they spend a ton of money, because guess what? The Yankees have spent a ton of money. The Dodgers have spent money better. How about that?
Yep.
How about that? They have spent money better than the Yankees have. You look at the way that they have put together that roster. It's a who's who of baseball greats, right? And the Yankees don't have that. Got Aaron Judge, got Big G, got a couple of good starters, uh, Garrett Cole, but they don't have the same kind of level of talent as the Dodgers do. Why? And they've also got holes all over their roster. The Dodgers don't.
No, you went through the roster comparisons on Saturday with Rob.
Exactly.
Where's the lie in what you just said?
Right.
There is
Right. And it's also not just been like, oh, well, the Otani contract is the reason why they're doing all this. It's a big help. I don't think they would have gotten Yamamoto without the deferral from Otani, and I certainly don't think they would have been able to make all these moves this year without without the deferred contract. But they've been building a great roster years prior. It goes back as far back as when they made the trade for Mookie Betts.
Donald, I want to bring this comment up from Graham because I think this is one of the best comments that we've seen, and we love all the comments in our chat. We're going to say what's up to everybody in a second, but Graham right here brings up a great point. It's a great question. What are the drawbacks to deferring? How do you trade a player who doesn't work out with all the deferrals? Not everyone will work out, and I think that's a very, very good question. Is how those contracts are traded.
Yeah, that
is something that ML. That's why I think in the next CBA, I think this is something that's really going. I think the deferrals have to stay with that team, and they're responsible for that payroll. You can only trade my belief. What I would do if I was the commissioner, which I should be, I've been campaigning for a while, is you could trade the money for that season, the seasons that are remaining. But the deferred money, I'm sorry, that's still on your pocket. You cannot trade the deferred money.
Yeah.
I think this is
it's a good question. But let's be fair. Like, for instance, the deferral on Otani's contract. They're not going to look to trade it. He's like the best player in baseball, right? Best two-way player in baseball. So there's no threat that they're going to try and move that contract. So that was like their major deferral, and the other deferrals. I mean, those guys are kind of like locked home run signings anyway. They haven't taken any massive risks, if you know what I mean. If you look at the signings they've made, they're all just pretty much like excellent moves. Are you going to debate Tanner Scott? No,
I didn't see that one coming, by the way.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, that's just a home run signing. You look through their team, and it's a team of home run signings. Blake Snell, I mean, a home run signing. I mean, these guys are home run signings. It's a home run team. It's a freaking incredible roster, and they should be credited for it because they've strategically planned on how to attack this market. And also, I love the fact that they just won the World Series, and instead of resting on their laurels, they've just decided to become inevitable and then basically just take over the whole of baseball since winning the World Series, right? And I'm sorry, the rest of baseball needs to catch up, and that includes the Yankees. The Yankees are far behind the Dodgers.
No, but I want to put a final point on Graham's comment. Like say the Yankees had deferred money on a contract for a Judge, and near the end it's just not maybe Judge is not a great example, but let's just say player A, they give a deferred contract and it's just not working out near the end, but they have all that deferred money that is owed, and that's going to go against a future cap. Then for the tax threshold, we'd be screaming about why you should have spent the money right out of the gate and traded that money away. So that's where I see where Graham, where that comment really.
No, I understand. It's just, to be honest, it's still up to the player, though. If the player's okay to have all that money deferred, then where is it in the law book that says you can't do that.
There is no
There's,
rule.
there's nothing wrong with it. And so this debate that the Dodgers are bad for baseball is nonsense. What's bad for baseball is what we're going to get into. What's bad for baseball is the fact that 2/3 of the league have no interest in spending a single dime. That's what's bad for baseball.
That's a big problem.
Right? Right? What's bad for baseball, you could argue, is the Yankees pleading poverty once they've reached the 300 million tax threshold. You know, the most valuable team in the sport. That's kind of bad for baseball. It's not a good look. The Dodgers, they're actually good for baseball. They've got the whole of Japan watching them because they've got 3/5 of the rotation Japanese, and their number one player is also Japanese. So they've now got the Asian market. They spend a ton of money. It's the entire continent that's just devoted to baseball. So they're all going to buy Dodger merch instead of Yankee merch. Very freaking smart. Very freaking smart. The whole of Japan will be buying Dodger merch instead of Yankee merch. In the 2000s, it was Yankee merch with Matsui Tanaka. Ain't that anymore. And the World Championships. Ain't that anymore. It's going to be all Dodger merch. So they're going to get all that money, right? So they'll easily pay back these contracts. It's not an issue. The Dodgers are strategic. They're smart. They, as I mentioned before until I sneezed, speculate to accumulate. It's smart business. The Yankees don't speculate to accumulate. And that's not smart business. They don't. They have been scared off because of their own stupidity. They've signed some horrible baseball players to crazy contracts, and it's absolutely fucked them when it comes to getting into the free agents that could really turn their franchise around. They're scared off of going after them because they gave off terrible contracts to Aaron Hicks. They took on $50 million to Josh Donaldson for no reason whatsoever. Giving Aaron Hicks a 10-year extension is the stupidest thing in the history of stupid, and they're still paying that back, even though he's long since left the Yankees. And then you look at some of the other ridiculous contracts they gave out, Jacoby Ellsbury, and they're still smarting from that. You know, and if you look at their budget right now, you know, there's $40 million of dead money on their payroll. You know what that $40 million could do? That could get you a superstar bat. You know, but but because that $40 million is tied to Marcus Stroman, tied to Aaron Hicks, and DJ LeMahieu, now they're playing poverty. So I'm sorry, I'm not buying that. That's your own fault. That's your own freaking fault. That's not the Dodgers' fault. That's not baseball's fault. That's not the Easter Bunny's fault. That's your fault. You've taken on $40 million of bad money. So how about instead of crying poverty about it, how about you just go and get Alec Bregman, right? You have to pay 120% on the tax. It's because it's your fault, right? You wouldn't have to pay 120% on the tax for an Alex Bregman if you actually allocated your funds better, if you actually planned better, right? You know what? I'm not gonna go and give DJ LeMahieu a 6-year contract with low AAV. I'm gonna give him a 4-year contract with high AAV in order for him to be off the books for this free agency with Juan Soto and with Alex Bregman and Pete Alonso, all these players available this year. They needed to be strategic, but they're not strategic. They don't plan ahead. So, yeah, they've had a decent offseason, right? No complaints. They've had a decent offseason, right? But they are not very strategic because they have misallocated funds and they're holding hard and fast to this luxury tax limit when they easily could go a bit over it. That's just the facts. They are the reason why there's $40 million bad money tied to their contract, and they're desperately trying to trade Marcus Stroman, who, by the way, was their big signing after Juan Soto, right? So once again, that shits all over that narrative that Brian Cashman was like, we're going to be the mecca of baseball. The one move that he made after signing Juan Soto was Marcus Stroman, who he's desperate to trade right now. So let's just be honest about it. We need to take the pom-poms away, guys. We can still be excited about them, but they have made a lot of mistakes. That is the reason why they're this far away from the Dodgers. We should be looking at, instead of just saying, oh, we're the best team in the American League East. No, why don't we aim to be the best team in baseball? Because we're way away from that. Real talk.
At this stage, to catch up to the Dodgers, I think we really it could be a pipe dream. I don't want to say it's impossible. They'd have to get very creative at this point. But I mean, they are looking like the top team in the AL. So it gives them more of a chance to get back to the World Series and face that juggernaut of the team. And believe me, everybody's waiting for the Dodgers to fall on their face. I saw your comment, Anna. I agree with you. So I don't see where I don't want to. I'm getting a little weary of using the cheap narrative with the Yankees, because they will give contracts out. They are aggressive in the offseason. They've made trades where they've had to take on a little bit of money and it's hurt themselves in the long. It just hasn't worked out, so it's amplified of a waste of money. But they've been aggressive. Some seasons it's a little off the beaten path where they end up shooting themselves in the foot, i.e. Donaldson. Is the big one right now, and the extension, the Hicks, Ellsbury, they've made bad moves, and so I don't want to. At the same time, I don't want to say that it's for a lack of trying for this organization to put a competitive team on the field. I think that's where you'll see some fans push back. They're like, yeah. The Hicks, the DJ contract looks terrible right now. But at the time when he was a free agent, after the 2 years that we got out of him, we were saying, you know what? For that, for 6 years at $15 million, we were looking at it like a steal for the production he was putting out. So each contract ages in its own way, so it's hard. Like the Stanton contract, I think that one's actually aging well. He may not play 162 games, but when the postseason comes, if Big G is healthy, sit back and enjoy. He's going to carry your team.
I would make that trade 100 times out of 100, and unfortunately, there was a lot of people that thought it was a bad contract.
I never did. I loved it.
I think it's a great deal.
Yep. And we've been like that since day one. We're not saying that because of the postseason he just had. You could check the receipts on this channel for the last 4 or 5 years. We've never wavered from that. But I don't think that the Yankees are in position to kind of sell themselves as the victim.
Right. So I'm going to pick up a couple comments here. Yeah. Ken, the Yankees were over $600 million on Soto. That doesn't seem cheap. I never said they were cheap. If you listen to what I said at the start of the show, I said I will not have any discussion that Hal Steinbrenner is cheap. He offered $700 plus for Soto. Definitely not cheap. And also, when I talked about the DJ contract, I said they should have had a higher AAV with less years in order for him to be off the books for this year. There was no reason to have a 6-year contract just to have low AAV in order to fit in this self-imposed budget. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, the point Donald's making, if I can echo it, Donald, for you, from how I see it, look, Donald's argument is not that they're cheap. It's they're misappropriating the money that they want to spend every year. You give them a higher AAV and take the hit is
smarter than being tied to
give it,
long-term bad
right,
contracts.
let's get to the now. All right, we've had this debate over the last month or so about Bregman. I am not in favor of giving him the years that he wants. If it takes cutting down a year or two for a 5-year deal, and I have to pay him an extra 5 on top of what he's asking for him to sign that deal, I'm okay with that. But I am not going to just go and say, well, we're desperate for this player, so if it takes giving him the extra year, then sign it. It would have to lower the AAV, so I'm not getting hit in the back end of it. So that's where the negotiations come in. I don't want Bregman for more than 6 years. If I have to add years 7 and 8, then yeah, you're not getting paid what you want per year. I'm not doing that. So there's gonna have to be negotiation there. You want to make $40 million a year? Well, then you're only coming here for 4 or 5 years. Like I'm not investing in the. I'm saying 40. As an example. If you want to stay here for 8 years, then I'm only paying you 25.
There's also been instances where Hal Steinbrenner has actually demanded to lower the payroll. And that was after the 2009 World Series run. Imagine that and this is going way back in time, so some of the younger fans weren't aware of that. But after we won the World Series in 2009, right, Hal Steinbrenner demanded that the payroll be lowered for 2010, right? And then that meant that they had to haggle with Matsui over tiny amount of money, which is now laughable in modern day, over $5 million, and they couldn't get it done. Matsui goes to the Angels over a difference of $500,000, and then we ended up with Nick frickin' Johnson. So,
that was a win,
which is laughable because they actually could have signed Jim Thome, who was actually asking for less than Nick Johnson at the time. But we're going way back in time. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is because there are times over the last little while that Hal Steinbrenner has self-imposed a budget. Now, is that a good look for someone who just wins a World Series? Oh, now you have to lower the budget? So that's why I give a lot of credit to the Dodgers, because they haven't done that. They haven't rested on their laurels. They haven't gone to the GM of the Dodgers saying you have to lessen their budget. No, they're like, no, we're actually just going to take over baseball, whether you like it or not. I respect that, because that's how badass teams need to be behaving. So I give them credit for that in many ways. So I'm not. I think it would be massively hypocritical as a Yankee fan for me to piss all over the Dodgers and what they're doing. I think they've just built a better team, and they deserve credit for that. There's a couple of comments here I want to get into. Troy, this is an interesting one. Stanton was and is a bad deal in my opinion because it stopped Cashman from pursuing Harper and Machado. I really want to pinpoint in this because that's one of the great fallacies of modern Yankee discussion that that Big G's contract stopped them from pursuing Harper and Machado. Do you know what stopped the Yankees from pursuing Harper and Machado? Brian Cashman. That is the only thing that stopped the Yankees from pursuing Harper and Machado, because Brian Cashman himself said, "We've got Aaron Hicks, we've got Brett Gardner. Why do we need Harper?" And he got pissy with the media when asked about it.
And he was so hopeful Ellsbury was coming back.
Right. So that's the reason why Harper isn't the Yankee.
That wasn't Hal.
That wasn't Hal either. And it wasn't Big G. That was Brian Cashman misallocating funds. Going, we got Aaron Hicks. Why would we need Bryce Harper? Right. That might be one of the stupidest things in the history of stupid. Right? And Machado, they didn't even make a phone call. Machado plays a different position from Stanton. Machado is a third baseman. They easily could have afforded him. So, I'm sorry, man. They've misallocated funds. They could have chosen either Harper or Machado. And then you look at the money that they have tied to really bad contracts, and they easily could have fit in Harper, who wanted to come to the Yankees on a budget. Harper could be playing first base for the Yankees right now. So I'm sorry. I'm not giving the Yankees a break because of it. They are the ones that are self-imposing a budget that they don't need to do. They're the New York Yankees. We need to start holding them to the same standards as they have been
holding themselves
to in order to sell tickets. Right? What did they say after they lost Juan Soto? We're gonna try and sign as many good players as possible. Pile up the good players, right? It's what did he say? We are no surrender. That was it. Love that one. No surrender. Right? What did he say after he signed Juan Soto last year or traded for Juan Soto last year? He said, "We are going to be the mecca of baseball." That's what Brian Cashman said, the mecca of baseball. What moves did we make after we acquired Juan Soto to make us the mecca of baseball? Marcus Stroman. Right. Okay. Yeah. Mecca of baseball, my ass. Let's start holding them to the same standards as they have been parroting in order to sell tickets.
Yeah, that's the biggest problem is we keep talking about we started the show talking about what would happen, or the narrative in the comments was saying, what's going to happen with the Dodgers, down the road with all the deferred money. You think they're not worried about, just like the Yankees weren't worried about giving out all, we're seeing the ramifications now from the Yankees perspective of giving out those bad contracts and where they're financially sitting now. So you're going to have to say, if we want to give out a big contract to Bregman, then don't complain in years 6 and 7 when it's not working out and we have, we're looking to get rid of them. If we want to win now, sometimes we have to sacrifice a couple years down the road. I'm okay with doing that for the right player. But the Yankees, they continue to just throw money at players for no reason, just because it looks good on a headline. And that's why I've continued to say the Yankees have had a very, very productive offseason because they have filled needs rather than the headline. But the Yankees now have to be like, all right, we have these bad contracts that are looming over us that cannot cause them to keep running scared. Because that's another argument that's been made a lot. We've made it that the Ellsbury contract now and the Hicks contract now has them scared to give them the extra year. But the Yankees didn't have a problem doing that with Max Fried, who's a pitcher. And Donald, you were asked the question earlier, are you okay with them having to give the extra year for Fried? I said the way that he pitches, he reminds me of a Pettit where he'll be productive throughout his whole career with, all his years with us. What was your understanding or your feeling on the Fried contract with them giving him that extra year?
I don't have an issue with it because the dollar now is not going to be the same dollar as in 9 years' time, right? So the value of this dollar now, and the value of what it means in terms of luxury tax and stuff like that, will not be the same as what it will be in 9 years' time. I think it'll probably be a fairly affordable contract. It's a fine contract. I don't have an issue with it. And we'll deal with it when we get there. At the moment, we have a window. That's why I like the signing, because we actually made the smart decision. We're like, well, listen, we have a window here. We have Garrett Cole, we have Aaron Judge, we have Stanton as our stars. We have a short window because they're in their 30s. We want to make sure we win now. Max Fried helps them do it. I'm just asking them to do a little bit more.
No, wait, look, we said I had no issue. I think we still have one of the top 3 rotations in baseball. I really do.
I'd say top 2. I would say we're only second behind the Dodgers.
Especially in the American League, we probably could have the best rotation. Right? It's I think the really number 1 rotation right now obviously would be the Dodgers. I think that goes without saying. But the thing that, and to answer Graham's follow-up question, I would sign Bregman. I don't care about. Look, we have until the end of the year to cut back on the salary. We talked about that in length last week. And I have no problems explaining, going over it again. If that's what you guys want to talk about. And this is partly you guys direct the show. We're just here to give our take on it. We throw out the discussions, you guys react, and we react to you guys. This is how it's always worked. So keep dropping those comments. We are looking. I think that Bregman is the right player. So if he wants $30 million for 8 years, go 33 for 5 and get it over with. Go 34. I'd give him a little more of an AAV to kind of pique his interest and go that route.
Get the years
and that
down.
Sets up now. That solves your infield. Right? Am I worried about the luxury tax to start the season? No, because it doesn't. The check doesn't come for the luxury tax until the end of the season.
Right.
So that gives you time to shed the contract of a Marcus Stroman, who's we know that they're looking to move, right? Which is fine, right? I thought it was a good contract when they brought him in. We know his numbers. The first half of the year, he was a great pitcher.
He was good.
Right? Second half is what he's always been, mediocre. He'll stay healthy. He'll give you the innings. He'll put the effort in, but the numbers are not going to be what they were in the first half. Get what you can out of him out of the first half of the year. Then move him. Use him as a trade piece if you have to. Especially because, to start the year, think back with last year. We had question marks about with Stroman, how he's going to respond to finally pitching in the Bronx, where he always wanted to pitch. What Hill is going to be as a rookie, Clark Schmidt, right? And we didn't have Garrett Cole. Garrett Cole was not with us in the beginning of the season. And that pitching staff stepped up and pitched their freaking asses off to get us to the start we did to make, if it wasn't for them in the beginning of the season, that August run where we couldn't win a game if we paid the umpires, we would not have been in the situation that we were. So there has to be a point where, all right, let's use these guys for what they're best at. If Stroman's strength is to get us out of the gate at a strength, use that for now. There's no need to get rid of him at this second. It's not like opening day, MLB's going, all right, pay your luxury tax.
Yeah.
So there's no pressure on the Yankees to make a deal just to make a deal. But they still have to get some free agents.
Plus, it's not a salary cap, so nothing will happen to you other than you pay a little bit extra tax on the dollar.
I'm going to, and I know part of the hesitation with Bregman is the qualifying offer. Right. And I don't want to go too far off the beaten path with that. I think in the next CBA, and we'll get your quick take on this, Donald, and then we'll continue moving on. I think that the qualifying offer should have an expiration date. I think once it comes to, pitches and catches, not even pitches, I think once it gets January 1st, the qualifying offer expires.
Well, I think regarding the qualifying, I think they need to get rid of the penalties that you have when you sign someone that's rejected a qualifying offer. That's my problem, because that's what a lot of we get in the chat going, oh, well, we can't sign this guy because it's going to cost us draft picks and it's going to cost us, luxury tax money and all that stuff. There shouldn't be penalties attached to signing somebody who's a free agent. Once you're an unrestricted free agent, then there should be no restrictions. That's the way I view it. That's the way it's just similar to the NFL. You know what I'm saying? Once you're an unrestricted free agent, then you are unrestricted. You can go wherever you need to go. There shouldn't be penalties attached to that. So that's what the first thing I would get rid of in the CBA is the penalties attached to signing a free agent. That's not going to cost me draft picks just because of someone rejecting a qualifying offer. I find that ridiculous. I think that's a ridiculous thing that they. So yeah, we're going to get into how they need to fix the CBA because baseball is broken. Don't get me wrong, baseball is broken, but The Dodgers are just taking advantage of the loopholes and the current landscape. And listen, if no one's signing these players and the Dodgers can afford them, then good on the Dodgers for signing them because no one else is doing it. At least they're doing it. How about look at the other teams, the 2/3 of baseball, that want to spend nothing? That's the problem. That's the big freaking problem. And we're going to get into that. Graham, once again, completely denies that there is a budget of any kind, or he thinks that I'm talking out of my ass. Um, Buster Olney says that the Yankees are perfectly happy to go into spring training with DJ LeMahieu and make a small move. That was Buster Olney, right? Ken Rosenthal, he says that the Yankees need to trade Marcus Stroman's contract before they can sign an affordable infield option. Quote unquote, affordable infield option. I am not making assumptions. I'm going at the best sources, right? The best sources are saying that the Yankees are looking for affordable options and they need to move Stroman's contract, right? Joel Sherman, the best of the best. He says the reason why the $12.5 million for Goldschmidt was that figure is because it took them right up to the Cohen tax threshold, which they want to stay at. Right? They want to stay at that figure. So they'll probably want to trade Stroman's contract before they make any further moves. I am not just making that up. I'm going with the top sources, and they're not trolls. They're doing their jobs. So how about just listen?
Yeah, no, it's look, and this is why it's getting, there's, and not saying this is getting ugly, but you're getting a lot of heated debates, in social media about what the Yankees should do and what they shouldn't do. That there is a majority of there are, percentages of the fan base that think that the Yankees should just roll with what they have at this point and make adjustments throughout the year up to the trade deadline. Are they wrong? I wouldn't do it that way, but I'm not going to say that they're wrong for wanting to go that approach. But the Yankees are the ones that keep setting the narratives that are being discussed. Like Donald said, that you have all these different beat writers. It's not one, somebody with a check mark just spewing things out to get clicks. These are reputable people. So when we hear the narrative, and we've heard it from Cashman in his interviews, because Cashman's very vocal. He's not shy of the camera. So we're going to react to what Cashman's saying. We're going to react to the narrative from the Yankees because they're the ones that are spewing it out. The Yankees weren't, the fans weren't the ones that forced the Yankees to say it's World Series or bust every year. We didn't force the Yankees to, to turn around,
Right.
and say that, there's a budget. We're out on this guy. The fans aren't doing that. The fans are just showing up to root for the teams that they feel, the team that's put out there every year. That's our job, to show support to the uniform. Players on the, believe me, if DJ is playing at third base, you think nobody's going to go to opening day? I mean, come on. They know us better than we do sometimes. Sometimes. They know we're going to go. They know it's going to sell out. Every team on opening day should sell out.
Oh yeah, that's not going to be a quick. The Yankees will always sell out. First of all, they're like they're like a tourist trap. Yankee Stadium. Everyone wants to go to Yankee Stadium. It's kind of like Madison Square Garden. It's one of those things. So they're always going to sell out. Always. Even when the Yankees were sending out the Little Sisters of the Poor, like in 2015, they still sold out every freaking game because it's still the place to be. Yankee Stadium. So we're not worried about ticket sales. They'll never have to worry about ticket sales. It's not the Mets. The Mets struggle to sell tickets at the best of times. The Yankees never will. But I'm just asking them to spend their money better.
Let's get to this comment from Roy, our resident Dodger fan.
Yeah.
Going on, Roy. Congratulations on the offseason your team's friggin' having.
Hell yeah, baby.
You say, and the players' union will not agree to a cap. They will not allow a rule that restricts how much players can make. The bigger problem is the owners mismanaging their organizations and not investing in the team. And Roy, that has been our argument for the last couple of years. So I echo everything you just said.
So let's talk about the CBA in 2 years' time and how they can change that. So before I don't think we'll ever agree to a hard cap, salary cap, but there has to be a salary floor
Absolutely.
because that needs to happen, man. You look at the teams that the A's who are only signing players in order to avoid a grievance. They're only signing players now because they got their move away from Oakland. They basically tanked themselves as an organization and as a franchise and as a meaningful franchise in order to move from Oakland. That's a disgrace. There should have been a grievance long before that. There needs to be a salary floor, 100%. The Marlins beat the Yankees in the World Series in 2003 and then looked to play cheap after that. What a horrible look for baseball. And then since then, they've changed ownership. They got rid of fantastic talent. Kim Inch, they had Derek Jeter in there. They wanted to build a good small market franchise, but the Marlins weren't interested. Disgrace. There needs to be a salary floor, 100%. There's 200 free agents right now that are unsigned. There's a lot of phenomenal baseball players there that are sitting there unsigned. But there's only a couple of teams that actually have money to spend because 2/3 of the landscape refuse to spend a single dollar because they actually benefit more from tanking, taking advantage of the college draft, and then taking in the luxury tax money from the Yankees and the Dodgers and the Phillies and the Mets. What a horrible look for baseball. Get me a salary floor. It has to happen.
Yeah. I was screaming about that for a long time. And I think, look, I would get rid of the qualifying offer altogether. I think the way that they should do it is, like you were saying, Donald, with the restricted and unrestricted free agent category. The baseball offseason is about 4 months. Anything within the first 2 months, the team that previously owned that player has every right to match or beat. And if they still lose that player, then give them something, give them a compensatory pick. None of this international money shit. Right, because that's also it's ruining the expansion of competitive balance. After the first 2 months, they were unrestricted. There's no harm in signing a player. I think that's going to be something that's brought up in the CBA. That they have to limit how long the restriction is for the penalties for other teams. I think that's an easy fix for baseball for everybody to agree on. But the deferred money, I think they need to work on how to implement a percentage of it to go against your salary cap for your tax thresholds. I don't know. I don't remember off the top of my head what the percentage is now, but I know there is one. I think they need to increase the percentage. Maybe you can only defer up to 50% of the salary, not the whole thing. You can't sign somebody for $70 million a year and only pay them $2 million. And just say, all right, when you retire, we'll pay you the rest. I think that is what started this whole snowball with the Ohtani exception to how they work that contract. And I think that's something that's also going to come into play. I think it's going to be an extremely ugly. We thought this lockout the previous time was bad. I think this one. I think we're in for a long lockout.
I think there could be a lockout because the big problem is the MLBPA don't want to do anything. They're just as much of a problem as Manfred. Um, the, the MLBPA complain that they have players that are unsigned and all that stuff, and people are unhappy because they're unsigned. Yet they have staunchly refused for there to be any kind of restrictions in place in the free market. That is the MLB offseason. But it's now gone to the point where, as I said before, there's 2/3 of baseball that refuse to spend a single dollar. Something has to change, and at the moment, you have teams that don't get penalized for doing nothing, but you get penalized if you are active. What kind of sense does that make? You know what I'm saying? So if you sign a free agent that turned down a qualifying offer, you then lose draft picks, right? If you go over a certain number, then you have to pay on 120% of the tax to these 2/3 of baseball that want to do nothing. What kind of sense does that make? So I applaud the Dodgers just going, you know what? F you guys. I'm just gonna spend, and I'm gonna make this team a juggernaut. I'm gonna make this team unstoppable because A, we can, and B, there's nothing that says we can't. And I think that's great. There should be more teams doing that. And I stand by that. There should be more teams doing what the Dodgers are doing.
Yeah.
That would make baseball better. You can't tell me that the Chicago Cubs can't afford to spend any money whatsoever. Chicago is one of the biggest markets.
The most loyal fan bases, too. It's
Beautiful
a shame
fan
that
base.
they're being put through.
Everyone talks about Wrigley Field because it's a historic stadium. People just want to go to Wrigley Field, right? And they've had some great teams in the past, legendary players like Sammy Sosa, who now apparently has to apologize for hitting 60 home runs every day. So miss me with that. But I mean, honestly, you're talking about a great fan base and a fan base that loves their Cubbies, and they have an owner that's like, no, we can only afford to break even. That's sad, man. The Chicago Cubs should be spending tons of money. They should be really, really active. The Boston Red Sox, another historic franchise, they were penny pinching for years, the last couple of years. Even after they won a couple of World Series. They've won more World Series than the Yankees have over the last 15, 20 years. So you're telling me that they should be just shutting up shop for a while? And now they're going to be active, I think. But again, that's not a good look. There's too many teams that are happy not to spend any money whatsoever. It's not a good look.
Yeah, if they don't do anything now, I mean, they are completely tone deaf. But to go over a few more of the rules, because I see Acevedo is like, was asking me, what the team's investing. Donald, we've gone over this with Rob multiple times, but for the people that are not familiar with what the rest of my CBA plan, I'm getting rid of this. I'm putting in the salary floor, right? And what my floor is, if you don't reach that floor, you get no revenue share. That money goes back to the team. Okay.
Preach.
I also think that there should be a veteran salary. So instead of, if they don't want to give the revenue share back to the team, have that for veteran salaries for players that, are 36, right? They still have something left in the tank where they could be of value.
The vet minimum.
But
yeah.
it seems, have a exactly. You have minimum wage. You have the rookie salaries. They have a minimum wage for that.
There's a vet minimum in the NBA. There's a vet minimum in the
NBA. And give these guys a chance to kind of go out on their own, rather than just being shunned out because it comes off as ageist.
Right. Exactly. There's a vet minimum in the NBA. You can afford.
You still want teams to get younger, but say Judge's contract ends at 37, right? For argument's sake, and you'll see why I'm using him as an example. He's 15 home runs away from 600, but his contract's over. Wouldn't you want to see him be able to get on, for one more year, to have that record? Because what team, there aren't many teams at that point, because the way they acted now, if you're over 35, if you're over 30, teams don't want to sign you. So there has to be, I think, if your contract ends after the age of 36 or older, there is a veteran contract that a team can get that is MLB funded that could be used from the revenue share. Use that if a team loses their money, that goes into a veteran's pension for a veteran salary fund. Something like that, I think, would be very realistic and achievable.
I think that's a great idea. I love the vet minimum idea, man. At least you'll get people employed that can still play. I agree. I completely agree. Because as I say, there's a vet minimum in the NBA. You can do that in baseball.
Yep.
And it wouldn't come off your the salary tax threshold nonsense. But I disagree with giving out draft picks to free agent signings. I don't like that. I don't think it's fair, and I certainly disagree that it's okay for these teams, small market teams, to spend absolutely nothing. I've always said that these teams, these small market teams, should be strategic. Sign players to like a 1 or 2 year deal, right? And then once you get to the trade deadline, trade them off for assets, right? Because that's what the Pirates did. Didn't they sign Aroldis Chapman and then they traded him? I mean, that's smart. That is smart. So that there should be a salary floor in order for these teams to get up to that salary floor, and there's nothing stopping them from trading that talent at the deadline to teams that are competing. That's smart. That's smart business.
You said you have a
need to be able to do that.
roster. If you have 4 players, let's say their salary floor is $100 million for the year. Right. Very fair, very reasonable. You can easily construct a roster with that money. You have 4 players making $25 million a year. You're already at your floor.
Right.
So there's no need for these teams to be so freaking cheap. But you have to, the revenue share has to go to players' salaries, nothing in the owner's pocket. Okay, that's something that should never happen. And Ken, that's what I was saying. If you don't reach if you're not utilizing your revenue share properly, you don't get it. And I think you could also, you want to. I also, I'm going to add one more thing to that veteran thing. I think a veteran salary, because it'll be a 1-year contract, because they'll play year to year. I think that 1 year, I don't think that should go against your salary tax.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Talking about the NBA, I mean, that's totally smart. It wouldn't go against the salary cap. Nope. Let's bring in some of these comments, bro. Yep. Before we wind up, Jonathan points out we've only got 28 likes. Well, we've got like 70 people in the chat. So what are you guys doing? Hit the like button, guys. Come on.
I like this one from Jonathan. This one's a debatable one.
Okay.
If the player doesn't sign by March 1st, they can't get a contract for more than a year. The one, you're just going to further destroy the value of that player. And what happens if the player is not offered a contract by March 1st? Then what?
That might incentivize teams to. But the problem is teams might be incentivized to wait till March in order to sign just guys to just 1-year deals. That might be a problem. Do you know what I'm saying? But I understand. At least it would get people signed, because it's crazy. There's like 200 free agents right now, and pitchers and catchers is in like 3 weeks, 2 weeks. It's obscene. It's absolutely obscene. It's the worst market. And the most annoying thing is one player tends to hold up the market for like 2 weeks at a time. So Juan Soto completely held up the market right through the GM meetings, right? And then after Soto, then the next guy that held up the entire market was Sasaki, all because of international money and draft picks attached to that stuff. That should never happen. Players should never hold up an entire market, and it's not their fault. It's baseball's fault for the way that the market is. It's a mess. So let's look at some of these people in the chat. FJ, the revenue sharing was intended to restrict spending from the big market teams, and all it's actually done is it's made it okay for the small market teams to spend absolutely nothing.
Yep.
And that's terrible. And now you've got owners that are buying baseball teams because they make a ton of money doing it without having to spend any money. They get subsidied from the big market teams, and they don't have to spend anything. And in fact, they can tank. And normally, an incentive to have a good team would be ticket sales, but they're getting tons of money from the big market teams, so it doesn't really matter if they don't sell any tickets. Look at the Oakland A's. There was like 3 people and a dog that went to see the Oakland A's in their last season in Oakland, right? Does it matter? No, because they're getting all the money from the Mets and the Yankees and the Phillies. Dreadful, 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 dreadful. Lou, those other teams don't even exist. However, how fun! Maybe only 8 teams. Let's continue up here. Tats, but why punish teams for investing in their team? Remember, players need to agree. Plus, Ohtani is able to afford taking $2 million because his endorsements, but also all teams are able to do it. So, what do you say to that?
Yeah, no, that's what I was starting to say earlier. I used Ohtani and his contract as an example, but I think with a guy like Ohtani, I think he was the exception, where everybody's kind of all right. It's odd, but we've never seen a deferred contract to that level. But now you're seeing, teams like the Dodgers, because they've been doing it more than any other team, probably all the other teams combined, with deferred contracts. So there has to be a penalty for that. You can't defer your entire salary because the way that it's constructed right now, they're still avoiding the revenue sharing that other teams are being penalized for. Because I don't even think they're at the threshold right now. They're not even at 301. They might be after Tanner Scott. But after Sasaki, their total salary for this year that they had to pay out in real money was like $272. So because of all the deferred money. So there has to be a way to balance that out. Like, why should the Yankees have to pay, that they're at 305 right now, whatever it is. But the Dodgers, after all the moves they've made, they still haven't had to reach that plateau. I'm like, but that also.
Well, I believe that they're 370 at the moment.
Like, why aren't they?
I believe they're at 370. The Yankees are at 300. There's no other team close to the Dodgers. But I agree with Roy here. The Dodgers are very smart with their money.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with them. That's what I'm saying. Like, the way that they built this, they're very strategic. They don't do things on a whim. They plan ahead. You can make the analogy that they're playing chess while the rest of baseball are playing checkers. Yep. They're very smart with their finances. They can afford it, but it's also regarding deferrals. It's up to the player. If the player's okay to have their money deferred for X amount of time, then that's up to them. Because remember, Juan Soto refused to have a penny deferred, right? So the Mets had to pay everything up front. But I mean, the Dodgers, to their credit, have found players that are okay at having their money deferred down the line. And they're going to get their money. They're going to get paid. And then they're going to get paid in endorsements and all that stuff. So it's strategic and it's smart. And the Dodgers are never going to struggle for money because now that they are the number 1 team in baseball now, and they've now got entire continents that are going to be watching them. So they're going to get more and more money that way. And I've always said, and I'll keep saying the phrase, but it's smart, and I really wish the Yankees would listen to it. Speculate to accumulate. Do you know what winning some world championships between the years of 2010 to now could have done? Or just before the Dodgers changed ownership and are now willing to spend whatever? Had the Yankees took advantage of their window better when they were the number one big bad Yankees, and instead of lowering their payroll and making excuses, had the Yankees actually won those championships, um, they would be the most valuable, most interesting. Well, they're still the most valuable, the most interesting team, and the most interesting team for international free agents and free agents in general. So, as I say, I think the Yankees have to hold themselves accountable because over the years, when the Yankees have missed the playoffs or been knocked out of the first round of the playoffs or all that stuff, all we got is excuses, injuries.
Yep.
Oh, it was the wind. It was this. It was that. It was this guy's fault. It was that guy's fault. It wasn't my fault. And excuses are for losers. And all the excuses might have helped quell the Yankee fan base, right? But it hasn't helped them in the long run because they haven't won the championships. And now the Dodgers are the team that are going to the World Series regularly, just won the World Series, pissed all over the Yankees in the World Series, and now they're the most interesting franchise. It helps to win championships. So I credit the Dodgers. They're just speculating to accumulate, and they're going to be fine now. And the Yankees
bring up this last comment before we sign out. I thought this was a good one. And it's from one of our favorite names on the channel. It's Drunk Hispanic 77. It's like, what's the point to play baseball this year? Just give the title to the Dodgers. One, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. And not every super team wins every year.
I think this one will.
Hey, you had the Bulls of the '90s. They were in it every year, but they got knocked down. LeBron didn't win every year. Brady didn't win every season. You still have to play the seasons.
Brady kind of did. Brady kind of did. Brady kind of did, man. Other than the Giants stopping them twice, they basically won the Super Bowl every single year.
Well, that's why my last guy I brought up was Brady. I'm like, because nobody expected those losses. You still have to play the game. So don't count the season out before it starts, because crazy things can happen in any season. Any season. So
I agree with John Hispanic here. The Yankees aren't spending on the right players. Facts.
I think this is the first offseason they have. Especially since this channel started.
That's true. That's true. That is true. This is the most well-rounded roster we've had in a while. But we're still a massive, massive, massive chasm at third base. And we don't have any on-base percentage in this lineup. And the Yankees seem to think that it's going to be okay just to leave it as it is. It's not okay in my book.
Yep. And no, look, I'm not going to sit here and be like, well, why bother playing the season? We lost Soto. Look what the Dodgers have done. Just fast forward to next year no. We're still going to sit and as the season starts, we're still going to be here 3 days a week, plus the weekends, breaking everything down, just as invested into this team as we've always been, and just like you guys are. Because like I said, it doesn't matter what the roster looks like. We are still Yankee fans. We're going to ride this out. We are going on this roller coaster, and we're all strapped in for the long run. So I'm not giving up on this team. We didn't make the World Series last year by accident.
I agree with JT. I think there is going to be an MLB lockout.
Oh, absolutely. It's inevitable. There's too much discrepancy between players, GMs, owners, fans, and MLB's front office. It's going to be a nightmare. Yep. We talked about that earlier.
Yeah, we did. Check us out at the start of the show. We broke that down. That's why I'm not giving the Yankees a free pass here. They wouldn't be in this spot. They'd be much closer to the Dodgers had they spent their money better. I know it's going back in time, but let's look at it. The Dodgers have just done a much better job building, and it actually predates Otani. I mean, as I say, they made a great deal for Freeman. That was a great signing for Freddie Freeman. Made a really great trade for Mookie Betts that cost them Verdugo. I still laugh at that. The Red Sox traded Alex traded for Alex Verdugo. I still love that. And the Dodgers got Mookie Betts in that trade. Wow. Can you imagine? So they make great moves. They make great signings. They make great trades. They just do things better than the Yankees. So it's now up to the rest of baseball to start spending some money.
Yep.
Instead of crying foul, oh no, the Dodgers are not fair.
There's no crying in baseball.
They're mean, man. I want to go home. Instead of complaining about the Dodgers, how about taking these small market teams, taking the obscene amounts of money that they take from the big market teams, and actually invest it in their franchise? How about that? How about that? And how about the Yankees going, wow, we're still the most valuable franchise in the sport. Why don't we go and spend a little bit more than $300 million per year? You know? And let's go and try and catch up with the Dodgers.
That's it.
That's all I'm asking them to do. And you know what? All I'm asking them to do is just to put their money where their mouth is, because the Yankees love to talk. We've all heard it. We've heard the PR. We're the fully operational Death Star. We got that from Brian Cashman. We're the Mecca of baseball. Got that from Brian Cashman. We've got the rest of the league is catching up to us. That was from Aaron Boone. The rest of the league is catching up. No, the rest of the league lapped you, brother. So instead of just talking, how about you put your money where your mouth is? And there's still a lot of the fan base that still buys all the shit that they sell. So I think this is a good channel that for you, the guys that like to read between the lines and don't wave pom-poms. This is a good channel for you guys, because we're gonna give you the hard facts, whether you like it or not. So everybody, hit the like button, and let's get this share it out. Hit the sub button. We've climbed up to 1.6. Let's get that up to let's get those numbers up. We want to get 2K at some point this year.
Yep. And with you guys, we will definitely get there, because we know how much you guys support us and how much we support you guys. So just remember, like Donald said, hit that like button, hit that sub button, share this out. And just remember, this is the Pitcher Chronicles, where fans become family. We will be back on Wednesday. Hopefully, Rob will have his schedule ironed out, as he had to work today. But if you are dealing with the snow, be careful if you have to go out, because it is a little dicey outside in New York today. So just be careful with that. And like I always say, wear those pinstripes of pride and play hard.